Hey, it's Justin. Welcome to part 2 of our training session. Using our analogy, let's get started in the first section, vision. If you can't see where you're at, where you're starting on your journey, and if you can't cast that vision for where your destination is, going from your start to the finish line is going to be very hard. You're going to need vision as the first component of this journey. So let's dive in. Welcome to the first section. It's all about vision. You need vision in business. You need the ability to be able to see where it is you want to go. And this vision is both internal, within yourself. You have to understand who you are, what are your strengths that you bring into this, and what are your weaknesses. If you don't have clear vision, it's going to be a very rocky journey. But as we start within this journey, you really want to understand the purpose of your journey. I know everyone's diving in, give me tools, tell me product, brand, business. But if you don't start here, when you first encounter a challenge, and there will be a challenge, your why for what you're doing on this journey is going to come to the forefront. So I really enjoy what Simon Sinek covers and start with why. So if you've watched the YouTube, you've read the book, you have a really good understanding of the purpose of your why. But I want to challenge you now. What is your why? Why are you doing this? Why are you creating a product? Why are you creating a business? Why are you taking this course to learn more? And if it has a revenue associated, let's scratch that. I don't want to see, I want to be rich and famous and on my private jets because I invent Spanx and I'm just a billionaire. No, get rid of all that. Get to the core. Why are you creating this product? What is it within you that needs to do this? Why? And while you're doing this, I'm going to bring that into a challenge right after this. So I hope you've got a very well-established non-revenue why. Because let's bring it into a challenge. Let's bring it into a real situation I see all the time in business. It's the clarity of your why. Very often in business, we see this. This is a crossroads, right? You have to make a decision. There are two different paths. And each path, you can't see the end result of where it gets to. But let's have an example. You've established your why. You've got your business and your product, and you're presented with a crossroads. The crossroads on one side of this appears to be a shortcut, right? It looks like it may take me where I want to go. Revenue, money, really fast. But this other path over here, it seems a little bit more difficult. Maybe there's a lot more work involved. And so you have to go back to that why. Why am I building this? What am I building it for? Why am I doing this? And when you come to this crossroad and you have to decide, should I go with the quick production of my product that's really fast and easy, but I remember my why and it was about making that big impact on the individual. Maybe I don't go with the quick production. I decide to do a little bit more product development to understand my clarity of why. So as you go through this journey of the business, your why is going to come to the forefront time and time again. So if you don't have this written out, if it's not clear, I would encourage you to go back up to the why that you just wrote and further clarify. What's a challenge that's going to come and what will this why do to help me get through that challenge and make the next decision? Still within vision, last component here for you to understand. Positivity wins. It wins every time in business. Because when you have a positive mindset, when you're casting that positive vision, you're giving yourself the ability to still see that destination. You're not derailed by having a flat tire or really struggling when things get hard. You can still sit back, remember your why, and cast the vision for positivity. So, if you haven't yet, I want you to begin to cast that positive vision. Take a few minutes and write out where your business will be 3 months from now and where your business will be 12 months from now. Using that positive mindset, begin to cast that vision for yourself. And when times get hard, and they always will, and you wake up in the morning, you're like, I don't know if I can do it. Read your positivity statements for where you want your business to be 3 months from now and where you want it to be 12 months from now. And more often than not, that positivity will pull you in the direction you want to be. All right, we're continuing our journey. Back to our analogy. We're in our e-commerce vehicle, and in this vehicle, our steering wheel is branding. Now, branding gets a bad rap. Branding can be a lot of things to a lot of people. So in this, I'm going to give a very high level understanding of branding so we can take it and we can make it actionable. This is not a $70,000 branding book, right? I've seen so many of these overpriced branding books, branding courses, branding coaches, where they give you this beautiful thing, but you don't know what to do with it. We're practical, and we like to take things and make them actionable. So we're going to go through branding in an actionable format. We're going to cover all of it as best as we can, but we're going to take a couple components of this and we're going to turn it into real action so you can use it. All right, and with that, let's grab a hold of our steering wheel and get started. Okay, let's dive into the elements of brand. Again, and I'm going to say this several times, branding is a big, big world, and we are focused on actionable elements of brand. So one of the first elements is, your mission statement, your purpose and your values. That is generally a focusing of why your business exists, the action it wishes to do, its values, and the whole reason it exists. We're not going to focus on that. There's a lot of great toolkits out there. There's a lot of great free resources that will help you. Now, the next is buyer persona. We will be diving into this. Your buyer persona is critical for having success in e-commerce. And more often than not, brands forget about their buyer persona, unsurprisingly, and we're going to bring the focus back on that. Next, of course, is like your logos, your colors, the visual aspects of your brand. Not saying that's not important. It is important, but there's also a lot of good free resources out there for that. Then, of course, it's going to be your voice, right? What is the tone of our product or our brand? Is it really funny? Is it witty? Is it memes? Or is it more classy, quiet, and reserved, but really pointed with our words? Understanding the voice is very important as you begin to go out and speak to your customers or buyer persona. Another, of course, is imagery. This is also very important, especially when you're taking your brand and you're handing it to someone else to create a visual representation of that. The imagery associated to your brand is really important. So these are some of the elements within a brand book and some of the elements within branding. Now let's dive into some of these that are going to be very, very helpful for you on the next part. Let's bring branding into real life with an example of a failure. Burger King bringing in low-calorie French fries. That is a prime example of a miss in branding. Why? Because if you look at the people who shop or buy at Burger King, they're not looking for a low-calorie French fry. They're looking for something that's a tasty, enjoyable meal, right? They're shopping for the taste and the flavor. They're not shopping for a health-conscious, low-calorie French fry. That would be an example of someone who has forgotten about their buyer persona, who's someone that shops, who's someone that buys their product, and it's them trying to fit within a trend within the market. This is an example, again, going back to the crossroads and a decision point here, where you can go back and you can look at your branding, your buyer persona, the understanding and purpose of your brand or product, and go, is this a good idea? No, this is not a good idea. So if we take this as an example of failure, how do we define our buyer persona in a way that we don't make the same mistake? Okay, let's dive into one of the most actionable parts of branding, buyer persona. You will need this throughout your entire e-commerce journey. And sometimes you may lose sight of this buyer persona. But let's try to focus on this buyer persona with as much data and information that you have. So if you have a list of customers, if you have a list of people that are engaged or want to buy your product, and you can pull as much of this information together, it's going to help you create your personas. Your goal should be to create 3 distinct buyer personas. Now, to get started in this, after you've looked at all your data, you've compiled it, you want to gather as much information as you can about them. Their age, where they live, their gender, what are their hobbies, what do they like, what do they dislike? As much information as you can, because that's going to help you understand how to better get more people into your business and how to do what some businesses don't do well. So if we use that Burger King example, They were looking at an idea, a trend in the market, and they looked at their product. They tried to fit a trend that didn't match their persona. If they were focused on their personas, they would say, well, we've created 3 personas, and none of them really are focused on low-calorie French fries. It will help you avoid having misses. It will also help you avoid trying to go after the people that don't match your personas. So, with that, go ahead and create 3 sample personas for your businesses. Okay, now let's talk about a good example of branding. Everyone's heard of the brand Patagonia, right? They create this outdoor sportswear, and their mission and their branding is bigger than their products. And they don't hesitate to really extend that brand. Now, in this example, what they're really promoting is, let's reduce the waste that goes into landfills. And so they realize with their buyer personas and the core of their branding that there's alignment, that they don't want more and more clothes just in a landfill. So they've created a program. It both supports the brand and it supports the mission, generally, and frustration of a lot of their buyer personas. So there is alignment in that, to where you can bring back any old, used Patagonia products and they will give them away for free. They'll donate them. And so it's a way for them to really align their branding, what they believe in, what their mission, their values are, and some of the missions and values of their personas. It brings a lot of alignment. Now, in this example, we can learn a lot about some simple ways that you can bring things that are frustrating to your buyers and personas and what your true purpose and mission of your business is. However, I'll say this with a clause, trying to create a mission, trying to create values just because it matches a frustration of your buyer persona is not going to directly align. At that, you have to be careful and really step back and ask yourself, after you've written your mission, after you've written your purpose, is this something that we stand for? Is this something that we value? And at the end of the day, you always have to have a really good product. People generally care about the product, not just the brand mission. But if you do it well, like Patagonia does, you can bring something together with your brand and your persona and find a really, really good match. So in doing that, let's take another step and dive deeper into how we can uncover some of that within our brand. Let's go into our last element of branding. When we're done with this, we should have several practical tools, things that we can use, things we can extend to other people to help us work together. And one of the biggest, most important components of this is the imagery, right? The visual imagery. Now, I'm not saying your logo or your font. I'm saying the visual representation of your brand. So let's take a look at 2 different types of imagery so we can get an idea. So as you're building your imagery, you build something like a mood board, right? Something that exemplifies your brand. And in this one, we have an example. We have very professional, very clean, very straightforward aesthetics of people who are both happy, but I would say classy and business professional. Now, let's say you have this in your mind. It's not written, you don't have a mood board, it's not posted somewhere. And although this is your imagery when you describe your brand story, if you don't bring together the imagery of how you visualize your personas, how you visualize your product in use, how you visualize the tone of the consumer who buys it, you may bring someone else onto your team and someone else in your team may interpret it very different. They may, in their mind, in their brand imagery, create something like this, right? Very, very different imagery, very different use and thought. But because us humans are so creative and we're exposed to so many brands, sometimes we can misinterpret. What's very, very helpful for brands is to stay consistent with their imagery, their story, and their branding. So if you haven't yet, I would encourage you to create a collage. Some people call it a mood board. Some people call it like an image breakdown. And sometimes they go further and they take it into the description of the imagery. And they're like, we are, within the lines. We're organized. We're clean cut. We're professional. Or some brands can say, no, we don't follow the rules. We don't stay within a square. We are who we are. And, they can further define their imagery. So with this, the last component of branding, go ahead and take a few minutes and bring together some imagery. If you already have a mood board, just feel free to move beyond this. But again, this is going to mark the end of branding. We're going to take all the tools and things that we've built within this section, and we're going to begin to apply it in the next.